hopefully the microphone is working now. I have decided that I want to install the Bellcranks now and get the push tubes assembled so I can check for fit and measurement since I'm installing these conduits. I'm fairly certain this is going to clear, but I need to install a second conduit run in both of the wings, which I plan to do back here. So I want to make sure that I don't have any interference now before I commit to installing anything else. Since I'm using the Sky Designs kit, it requires me to do some modifications. There's some math involved. I'm going to walk you all through that. I feel like this would be a helpful thing. So the first step is you get the brackets installed, which these have been installed previously. They're torqued. I did not torque seal them because I knew they'd be coming back out. And I'll explain why in a minute. So the first step is you want to measure this distance. So get a good wag on the distance. And in my case, 2.86 is what I got. So on the instructions they provide you, you document the 2.86 up here. And this is easier for me because I'm building brand new wings, not trying to retrofit old ones. So from the 2.86 inches, we have to subtract 0.250. And that's going to account for these spacers that Sky Design gives you to put in here. So that gives me 2.61. After that, you need the Bellcrank. So let me go grab the Bellcrank. Okay, so now you want to measure the distance on the Bellcrank. And mine measures 2.74. So you take the 2.74, you document it here, minus the 2.61 that I need it to be to fit the spacers and everything else for the Sky Design setup, gives me a difference of 0.131. I now need to take this Bellcrank over to the sander and squarely grind off enough material equally from both sides to take that 131 off. So that's 0.065 per side, which means the first side I'm going to take the overall length down to 2.676, and then the last bit of grinding should get me to the 2.61. So I've already gone ahead and done that. Sorry I didn't do this on camera. I was trying to get ahead of myself. I've already ground these down. The tricky part is making sure that your grinding table is perfectly square and that you have this square to it so you get a nice square finish on these. After I ground it, I went ahead and chamfered these inside edges per the call out on the instructions. And now you see there's paint on there. What I did was I took my self-etching primer, because I exposed from the powder coat, I cleaned all this off. I don't want this to rust or rot later, so I hit it with some self-etching primer. It's probably going to wear off while this thing rotates, but some protection's better than none. And I sprayed a bunch inside the tube and swirled it around to get the inside of the tube. So what you do is those now fit inside of that tube. That's why you added that 1/4 inch dimension to it. And then this side, if I got the drawing, oh, and I don't. I'll make sure I don't get this backwards, but I'm pretty sure this is the direction for this side. So what you're going to do is you're going to bolt this whole thing together now. So I need to take this out, bolt it together with this, and then we'll put the whole assembly in, make sure there's no binding, we got freedom of movement. Okay. So the first problem, you can't get a ratchet on all of these. There's one thing I noted with the Sky Design setup. The material is so thick and close right there that you can't really get a socket unless you get a really thin-walled one on there. Oh, that one got on there. Some of these you can, some of them you can't. So I've got a crow's foot for the ones I can't reach. But if I can reach it, I'm definitely going to get it. Yeah, that one I can't reach. That one I can't reach. That one I can't reach. Alright, so now we need the crow's foot to get in here. And if you've got a wrench with a 90-degree pivot to it, that'll work too. Once this gets enough wiggle to it, there's probably enough room for me to get that ratchet in there now. There you go. Now the reason this has to come all the way out, I'll show you real quick before I take it out, is because the bolt that's going in there will not fit with those brackets in. Well, I'd like to show you, but I don't know where the bolt went. Oh, there it is. Still in the box. Okay, Sky Designs provides this hardware too, but the bolt needs to go in from that side. And you can see with the skin up there, that's not going in. So these need to come out. Alright, bottom one is out. Now we gotta get this top one out. It's all about just finding the angle that works. Okay, that's good and loose. Let's loosen this one, and then I can probably get the ratchet in there to finish taking them out. Sorry, the ratchet with the socket. Alright, well, let's try that with the socket. Try not to dent my skin. That would suck. Okay, so now that is out. I go get the rest of the hardware. Okay. So now what we have is this washer. Bolt goes through that washer, goes through the top bracket, and then the aileron Bellcrank goes through like that, through the bottom, just like that. Now let me go double check my orientation, make sure I got this right, because I don't want to screw this up. I've got it right. Alright. Put those back in because I don't want to lose them. Alright, so that goes like that. Washer on the bottom, nut, and now that nut is going to get torqued to 45 inch-pounds. And the reason I say 45 is because I am adding the drag torque to this for the lock nut feature. All the hardware is installed. We're going to torque it to the 45 inch-pounds. Again, that's including the drag torque for that nut. So now you can see it spins really nicely. It is super, super smooth. Clean all that back off. And now that gets reinstalled. And at first, we're just going to run this down and make sure there's no binding. And then we'll go through and torque that back in place. Should be able to get them started with the socket. Maybe. No. Unfortunately, that back one is not going to want to cooperate. These really are a pain in the ass. I can't imagine having to try and do this with this already installed on the wing, because it's really nice to be able to reach through the side if I need to, or anything else to get up in here. But if it was installed already and there was wing skin on here, that probably wouldn't work so well. I'll just go slow and steady. Now, when I torque these, I am going to have to do math, which I've already done and I wrote it down. But if you want to use a crow's foot to do torque, you got a little bit of math you got to do. It's really not hard. The formula is written down several places online, and there's some really good books you should probably have if you're building a plane, and those cover a lot of these procedures as well. And I'll show you the one I use here in just a little bit. But it gives you a formula in there to take some measurements to be able to adjust your torque value for using a crow's foot. So overall, this whole process is not very difficult. It's just a matter of pulling those measurements and then very carefully grinding away at your Bellcrank, which is kind of a daunting task, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's only an airplane. And if you make a mistake, you take too much off, they do say you can shim it with some washers, but you can also, you know, if it gets that badly screwed up, you can get a hold of Vans and order a new Bellcrank, and you know, nobody wants to have to get new parts, but it's better to have quality stuff on there that's not screwed up, and you always have options. So, okay, that is run down. That is run down. Let's finish running these down. And best I can tell, I do not need to remove this again for putting on the push-pull tubes or the autopilot servo, which is going to mount right there. Definitely something I want to get done before I close out the wings. But that's why this conduit is here with that T and that pull string in it. That is for the autopilot servo that will ultimately live there. Okay, that one is starting to snug up. and that one's snugging up. And as you can see, we got no binding. It moves freely. Very nice. Now all we gotta do is torque this thing. And the torque for this, after all the calculations, should be 22.4 inch-pounds for the top ones, and that's because I need to have the crow's foot pointed in on the wrench, and it'll end up being 18.06 for the bottom ones because it'll be pointed the other way, and this is just to account for the mechanical advantage of the crow's foot. Probably help if I make sure I got it set. All right, so there's 20, 1, and 2. Okay, that is torqued. That one is torqued. Now we'll adjust it to 18. Right there. Okay. And that is torqued. Still moves freely. Everything is good. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it if you're doing the Sky Design system. Again, not that bad. Just make sure you're measuring and double checking all of your measurements, and should be good to go.